Hello, live community. It's Jackie Porter, the financial confidant. And it's such a good night. Hello, live community, confidant community. It's live at 5 with the financial confidant. And for those of you who've checked out a live before, you know we're all about making financial conversations more accessible and fun.
Right.
And I've got my man Jin with me today, my right-hand man, my office husband actually, to join us for our Ask Anything series. So Jin, how are you liking the song?
I love it. What's the name of the song again, Jake?
Well, I was going to ask actually the live community, any of you know this song? Have you ever heard this song before? Because I'm going to confess, because, I'm just talking to you confidant community members. So I feel like I can tell you anything. And it is the Ask Anything version of our show. So I just heard this song recently and I just fell in love with it because it just has this airy, fresh feel. And I heard it on, of all things, Indian matchmaking. Have any of you watched Indian matchmaking? You heard me talk about Succession, one of my obsessions, one of the shows that I really like. I actually love Indian matchmaking as well. So if any of you have ever seen it, please feel free to post in the chat. I feel like this Indian family and this woman who helps to matchmake, I feel like she's a member of my family because I certainly know people like her in my own family. But yeah, so I heard this song in the Indian matchmaking series, and it was actually airing. They had that in the background when this beautiful couple who had just started to see each other, and it was like the early stages of the relationship. Everything, Jen, was going really, really well. The honeymoon phase, I would say, of the relationship, and they had "It Is Such a Good Night." It was such a great song, and it was just they're in the throes of the romance. And I loved it. And I thought about it for this episode of our live, simply because we're talking about growth today, right, Jen?
That's right. Yeah.
And because it's, we talked about spring cleaning because we just came out of April. And I don't know about you guys, I'm a little bit just over the rain. But the truth is, with rain comes flowers blooming, things growing. So I thought this month would be a fun month to talk about growth. And the reality is, growth is great, just kind of like Indian matchmaking, the honeymoon phase of the relationship. Do you remember the honeymoon phase of your relationship, Jen, when you thought nothing could go wrong? You're like, this is perfect.
I do, yeah.
Until, of course, something does.
Of course.
That's why I think in certain cultures, you actually, before you get married, because if you're in the honeymoon period for a really long time, before you get married, you need to have a fight and you need to go to marital counseling to just really get to know how to deal with and get advice and counsel on how to deal with those hard times, because they're going to come. Very similar to your finances, right, Jen? Like, hard times are going to come. So that's why we're saying that growth can sometimes be deceptive. And that just happens to be the conversation we're going to have today. So Jen, that's actually what we're going to talk about. And that's actually why there are many areas that when we're talking about your wealth and doing well, that sometimes we'll talk to clients and they think, oh, I'm doing well. Do I even need an advisor? Things are going well. Your business might be doing well. You might be climbing up the ladder at work. Everything's going fine, right? And that might make you feel potentially overconfident. You may feel like things are going well. Why would I need to see someone like myself or Jen or any advisor if things are going well? And the truth is, there's so many areas a professional advisor can add value and help you keep doing well. Because, things can be uncertain. So really what we do as advisors is help figure out ways we can help you optimize your wealth and see what you can do with your wealth so you can continue to enjoy all the success that you have. Right, Jen?
That's right. That's right.
So the first, I think, so let's get into it. Again, welcome, Jen. Thanks for grooving with me. The live community just keeps checking you out and seeing how you're growing in this in your dance moves. I'm
I'm
going to have to
trying.
keep up with you at some point. But I was going to say, in terms of enjoying your success and wealth, probably the biggest value that advisors can bring is just showing you what's possible with and what you can do with your wealth and how you can really enjoy your success. So let's kind of dive into that a little bit.
Sure, yeah. So if you're doing well, congratulations. I'm sure you worked really hard to get where you are. And then now you're here, now you might be wondering what's next. So that's where financial planner and advisors can really come in and help you show you what's possible for you and what's next. The way you see it is you work so hard to get all the way here. Now it's to really time to enjoy your success. So definition of success, I guess, can really change from person to person, and we often see two types of people, right, Jackie?
That's great.
First person never wants to retire.
Yes, so many people in our practice are like, we're never going to retire. That's right.
Exactly. I'll work. We have clients who will say, "I'll continue to work until my body stops."
Well,
Really.
yeah, I have lawyers, Jen, that'll say stuff to me. This is very common. Are you a lawyer who said, "Die at your desk"? That that you're going to work till you die at your desk. Are those lawyers still there? I don't know. Are millennial lawyers? Are you feeling like you're one of those lawyers who are going to die at your desk? I'd love for you to post in the chat about that. You're not retiring. I think
Yeah.
that's changing, but I'd be curious to see what people say.
For sure. Yeah. And the second type of person is people who had it enough and maybe want to scale down a little bit, scale back, maybe not fully retired, reduce their hours, maybe get into more part time, and maybe do more, get into board of a company or do more consulting work and really enjoy their life. Right. And yeah, and for both types of people, what we can really do is we can show them what's possible with the wealth they have built so far. So, let's say you are the first type of person who wants to continue to work until you can stop work. You have to stop working physically or cognitively. We can show you whether the wealth you have built is enough to have you become fully financially independent and have the financial freedom. So,
Exactly.
mhm,
Because ultimately, I mean, I think that's what people want to know is, sure, you're doing well and you never want to stop working, but at the end of the day, if your assets can retire and you can work,
mhm.
that's really at the end of the day what people, I think what the peace of mind we give people, isn't it?
Exactly. It's very different mindset if you're working because you're not sure if you need to continue to work or if you can afford to work. So if you're working because it's basically you'll be working because you want to,
Yeah,
not
not because you
because
have
you
to.
have to.
Yeah.
Exactly. That mindset shift, and having the flexibility really makes impact. I'll say on to really enjoying what you love to do and giving you the peace of mind you need.
Yeah, exactly. I think that working because you want to, not because you have to, just kind of gives you a different reason for getting up in the morning and wanting
Hmm.
to make a contribution, and just that weight of pressure of thinking, do I have enough, and that worry. I think it just really gives people so much peace of mind. But on the flip side of that, if you're someone who actually wants to retire as soon as possible, a financial planner can show you how soon it is that you can retire so you don't have to worry about money. Or if you're just kind of in between, I've had clients that have had to take time off, so they're doing well. They're not close to retirement yet, but maybe they have an aging parent. So they need to take a couple of years off to take care of their aging parent, and they just want to know if they can afford to do that. Or they might just be burnt out. Maybe they had COVID done them in, and they want to take with between the kids and taking care of elderly parents, and that all of the above, taking care of parents, taking care of their kids, trying to keep up at work. They're just burnt out, so they want to know, can I just take a couple years off? Am I still going to be okay? I know that I'm doing well, but am I doing that well that I can do that. What's possible, right? So
Mhm.
I think those are really important things that we can show people, tangible things that we can
Exactly.
show people that gives them that peace of mind that, okay, what does my wealth actually mean? Because at the end of the day, that's what, you're doing well. But what does well mean? As you said, Jen,
Yeah.
earlier, it is all relative. And the other piece of it too is going back to, that it's such a good night, everybody's doing well, or this is the honeymoon phase of, doing well in your financial life. That sometimes can, just like in the honeymoon period of your relationship, make you feel like things can't go wrong. And
Mhm.
I've actually seen situation where that sense of, oh, things are good, makes people take undue risk. That whole thing about being overconfident, where undue risk might be, if you're a high income earner, you're spending more than you make. You're like, I'm gonna just, that paycheck's gonna keep coming in, it's gonna keep rolling in, and I don't have to worry because I'm the man or I'm the woman, I'm doing well. And here's the thing, you probably have heard those stories of wealthy and successful people going broke. And really, there was a study done a couple of years ago that said even wealthy people are a paycheck from poverty if they spend everything that they earn. And
Right.
you don't have to look too far, because think of also those sudden millionaires. So let's say it's a good thing, right? Like, all of a sudden now I'm balling. I've got $5 million or $2 million or whatever it is. I just won the lottery. The average millionaire is broke in 5 years. Like, why is that? One of it is they don't have financial literacy, but they think, it's $5 million. It's just going to keep growing and growing, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
think those are some of the reasons that people who do well, sometimes it could make them, overconfidence can make them spend all the money they have, just assuming it's going to continue to roll in. But they could lose their job, they could lose half of it to a divorce. Things can happen. What does that mean? What's the impact going to be to your finances?
Exactly. And so life, as we all know, can really change in a lot of unexpected ways, right?
Yeah,
So even if, let's say, being financial well, I guess, can be defined in different ways. For some people, it could be, like Jackie mentioned, earning a lot of money, but not really having nest egg saved up.
that's right.
So like Jackie said, even if you are in a really good earning scenario, you're earning a lot, but if you're spending all of it, the reality is, if anything happens to you and if you go unprepared, it's very easy for you to put it into really bad situations, not being able to keep up your lifestyle. And Jackie, you might agree with me. So we have seen some clients who are at executive levels at some of the companies, and then they have a really good earnings,
That's right.
but they only have but their expenses also kept up with their earnings.
That's right.
Yeah,
Every year, as they get that paycheck, they already have pre-planned on how they're going to spend it.
exactly. Not on how they're going to save it, but
No,
more on how they spend it, right?
like, as goes my income, so goes my lifestyle.
Yeah. And yeah, so if something like that happens, and that you may not be too worried about retirement, thinking you'll continue to earn, and you already have some sort of a group plan where you're putting your money in a group savings. But then, because your lifestyle now requires such a high expense, your saving could be in a chance where it will run out in less than a year.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that blind spot is, I'm making a good income. And then something, even what we just saw, like with interest rates going up 7 times in a year, where all of a sudden, even that good income, because you're so close to what goes in, what goes out, then you don't have that extra money in your pocket to actually service this additional debt. So where does that leave you as someone who's overconfident? The other scenario could be, you think, okay, well, I'm making a good income, I'm going to work forever, and you have a health issue. And again, you're a paycheck away from poverty if you're spending everything that you make. And then you might think, oh, I have this great disability plan at work, and then find out, of course, everybody wants to find out what their plan says after they actually need to use it. Of course not. So you find out all these things, and then you find out that, as Jen said, unexpected things happen and you're not prepared for it. So you've got a scenario where interest rates went up, potentially you have a health issue and you're trying to claim on your disability, and all these things that you thought you could count on aren't there. So what's your cushion? Where is your financial fortress? How many of you have an emergency fund for scenarios like that? How many of you know how much you're spending and know how much you're putting away? How many have automatic savings programs? So these are some of the things that we're working with clients through, is making sure they have that emergency fund, making sure that their plan, the risk protection that they have in place are what they think they're going to be if they ever need to rely on them, and just working through these worst case scenarios so they've got a solid financial fortress they built around them. Isn't that right?
That's right. And just one more thing to add on to that is, for health issues, you might be thinking, telling yourself, already have a group insurance that covers my disability scenario.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of times where it may not be enough.
Right.
And also what happens is, there's a subtle difference in terms of group insurance premiums. If your employer pays for all of it, likely the benefit you receive will be taxable, which
Right.
create a big gap between how much you're earning right now after tax versus how much you'll be receiving in disability benefit. So those are some of the areas we can help do the analysis on and to find out the gaps as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I see that with we have a lot of legal professionals in our practice, and maybe their firm is paying for the policy. So you really want to take a closer look if your firm is paying for it versus if you're paying for it, because at the end of the day, it may mean that if, God forbid, you need to rely on that plan, there's going to be less available for your lifestyle than you think is going to be. So those are definitely some of the things when we do a plan, we work through with the client. The other thing is just around, let's talk a little bit about optimizing wealth.
Yeah.
And really figuring out how to make better decisions. Because let's say you're somebody who's built up a nest egg and you know exactly what you want to do with it. Even in that case, a financial planner can provide so much valuable advice on helping you to improve your wealth and even to make better decisions. Because let's ask the Confidant community. We were talking about interest rates a while ago, and I know the Confidant community is a lot smarter than your average community. So I want to ask them, how many of you during the last 5 years, well, last 2009 to now, we've had near zero interest rates. How many of you use that time to build a plan to pay down your mortgage sooner? How many of you did that on your own or with a planner? I'd love for you to post in the chat to just give some feedback on how you've managed debt with interest rates being so low. I mean, last year was completely unexpected, which is kind of how life works. So did you use this from 2008 to now to focus on paying down your debt? Please post in the chat. Now, on the other hand, how many of you wish you did, right? How many of you also might be thinking, I was on variable, because we've had this rule. I know I've heard mortgage brokers say this, variable is usually the cheapest interest rate you're going to pay. Fixed is, going to be more expensive. So how many of you wished that you had locked in much, much sooner than you did? How many are on a variable now? How do you feel about it? We'd love for you to post your comments in the chat about, are you on a variable mortgage? If you have a mortgage, if you don't, pat yourself on the back. But if you do, like most Canadians who have racked up way more debt, especially since COVID, how many of you are on a fixed mortgage versus a variable? How many of you got advice around that? We would love to know. Please post in the chat. But these are some of the things that we know that clients come to us to help them figure out. I have this extra money. I'm getting a bonus. I'm getting a bit of a windfall. What should I do with it? How much should I put towards the debt? How much should I put towards my retirement goals? How should I structure my mortgage so that I pay it down? Because it's a balancing act. I often will say to clients like that, because interest rates are low, let's fix, especially because interest rates were near zero, folks. It's not going to go much lower, even if we get variable. We know. Yep. So those are some of the conversations sometimes I'm pleading with people, but we get it done. And really around that, I would say, striking a balance sometimes can look like, let's reduce your amortization period. So maybe if you had, a 25-year amortization period, you've got some extra cash, and we're trying to strike a balance between putting money away for the future, because again, interest rates are low, so the market will do better, and paying down the mortgage. I'd say let's look at reducing your amortization period so you can actually strike a balance. So those are some of the strategies we'll look at as we help people figure out how can we make them wealthier in the long run.
Right.
So those are some of the strategies, but there are several other areas that a planner can help you optimize as well, especially around tax planning. Isn't that true, Jim?
Yeah, that's true. So tax planning is definitely a big part when it comes to optimizing wealth. So now you have all this wealth built up. If you can optimize it, make it better, the faster you can have your financial freedom, or the more you can enjoy your success, right? So,
right. Because I know so many of you out there love giving money to the government. I know that I don't. But anyways.
Yeah. So one good example is looking at withdrawal strategies. So this is especially more relevant to people who are retiring, or it's time for them to start using their wealth.
That's
so
right.
you might be thinking, you might be thinking that you need help with your financial advisor to accumulate your wealth, but withdrawing can actually be a place where the advisor can add a lot of value as well. So what we do for those clients and client illustrations are really showing them exactly how much to take out for which type of account. So if you are already at retirement or getting closer to retirement, you already probably had a mix of different types of accounts. You might have your RSPs and TFSAs, or even you might even have some assets built in non-registered account. So we can tell you what's the most tax efficient way to withdraw money from which account,
Right.
and so that you can minimize taxes overall. And one example is called RSP meltdown strategy, and we often recommend combining this with deferring your CPP and OS.
That's
This
right. And
something.
how many of you out there are familiar with the RSP meltdown strategy? Have you heard of it before? Have you ever used it? We'd love to know.
Exactly, yeah. And so this strategy can really help increase the CPPOS benefit significantly, while reducing the tax burden you have to pay on your RSPs and later with when you turn 71.
I'd love for you to say that again, Jen, just because for some reason your audio cut off for a bit, and it's so important. So if you can say that again for the live community, because it's such a powerful strategy. Go ahead.
Sure. So by combining the RSP meltdown strategy with different CPPOS, what you can do is you can significantly increase your CPPOS. Let's say if you take it at 70, it will go up by almost 42% for your CPP versus taking 65. And if you combine it with RSP meltdown strategy, you'll be withdrawing most of your RSP during earlier years, so that you will have much less tax burdens during later years, where when government forces you to start withdrawing from your RSP.
One of my favorite strategies.
Powerful
Love it.
strategy.
So more money in your pocket from your RSPs, and much less money going to CRA for your taxes. Who can argue with that? Love it. Love it. And another strategy that I really like, tax strategy, because taxes, as you might know by now, live confidant community is my jam. I love saving my clients money on income taxes. My accountant always bugs me that because I've been working since I was like 15, I have the longest tax file he's ever seen. And I've always paid tax since I was 15. It's so cruel. So this is something that I love helping clients sort out, is how can they, respect their paycheck more by getting more money from their paycheck without working harder. How are you doing? Are you doing this in your own tax scenario? So I had this client, a lawyer actually, who in her most one of her most lucrative years, this is earlier in her career, so she was doing really, really well. Maybe she had made like 250, then she made like 400, and then that particular year she made over $1 million. She's a personal injury lawyer, and that was one of her biggest years, and it just kind of happened. All of her cases settled in that year. Now, she was self-employed. She was set up as a self-employed person. And so if you are a self-employed person who earns $1 million, anyone know in the confidant community how much income taxes you pay? Do you know the marginal tax rates? You just filed your income tax. Do you know the marginal tax rates? Do you know what your marginal tax rate is, live community? I would love for you to post in the chat about that because it was serious for this woman. Do you know if you earn over $220,000 in this town, and I'm talking about Ontario now, what that means? Tell them, Jen. What does that mean if you earn over 220,000 in this town?
More than half goes to the tax person.
54%.
Mhm.
54%. Handing that over. This is what the government means when they say you're in partnership with them. Did you know you're in partnership with the government? Okay, so this woman, because she was not incorporated, lost some significant dough that she made. And at that point in her career, she was probably like year 5. She didn't know, because she was a personal injury lawyer, if she was ever going to see that kind of money again. So to say, very, very meaningful. And the reality is that's when we started to work together, because I was like, has anybody ever talked to you about a corporation before? Even her accountant, who was seeing her income go up over the last 4 or 5 years, did not ever talk to her about incorporating. So incorporating is powerful because it means she can take out what she needs to live, which might be closer to 250, unless again you're one of those people who lifestyle creep, more money, more lifestyle versus putting it away. So a corporation, using a corporation as a strategy, is a powerful way to tax shelter income that you don't need right now. You could use it for the business, you can use it for retirement. And keep in mind, money that you save in the corporation, you leave in the corporation, instead of being at the 54% rate, it would be in the 12.5% rate. So you do the math on that, live community. No joke. So that's one of the ways that I think, it's important for us to look at. Yes, you're making money. Yes, you're doing well. How can you keep it? Because it's not about how much you make. It's about how much you keep. So Jen, let's talk a little bit about optimizing your wealth now around estate planning. Could you dig into how we can help our clients doing well, leaving a big estate behind? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure, yeah. So what we can help with around estate planning is, you might be someone who wants to leave something for your children, for your heirs, or for your favorite charity. And you might have a family property, maybe family cottage that you want to pass on to your children without having them sell the cottage. So those are scenarios where there would be estate tax situations. So let's say you have a family cottage, going back to the family cottage example, and you want to pass it over to your children so that they can keep it and continue to enjoy it. But once you pass away, the CRA will assume that it is sold. It will be deemed sold, meaning they will ask for taxes on the property.
Right.
So it could be in a situation where your children received cottage, but they will have a few $100,000 in taxes to pay. So if that happens, they either have to come up with this money to pay for the taxes, or they'll be forced to sell the cottage and use the proceeds to pay for those taxes.
That's
Those are situations where we can analyze and see if that's going to be the case for you. And so we can also come up with device strategies, withdrawal strategies, so that you will have enough liquid assets to deal with those taxes, or if not, come up with this sort of a permanent life insurance to pay those taxes.
Yeah, because permanent life insurance will at least, because again, going back to your estate, if you've got a large estate that you've built up that you now are going to leave to your children, again, especially let's talk about, things like the cottage. Maybe you've had a cottage in the family for many, many years. Wonderful. How is your child or your estate, your heirs, going to be able to hold on to the cottage, because they have to come up with the money for the capital gains tax? Is your estate going to be liquid enough to give them enough cash after tax to be able to hold on to the cottage? Have you ever done the analysis? Or this is also a very painful conversation we find for our wealthy clients who are like, I'm doing well, it's all going to go to my kids, I'm going to leave all this for this child, this for that child. And then they find out that the RIF assets, So the RSP assets in the year of death with no spouse actually is 100% taxable. So it's kind of like, again, going back to that $1 million example, it's kind of like earning $1 million because all of it has to be declared on your income taxes in the year that you pass away. So if you're trying to equalize, what your assets are, the one child gets the cottage, maybe one gets the RSP. Have you ever done the math to see after tax what they're going to have left over? Really important exercise to go through, especially when you're doing well. So just some things to go through. So just thinking through, what will your assets be, what assets will be left after you start living a life, enjoying your lifestyle, what's going to be left for the tax person to tax at the end. Is that right, Jim?
That's right. Yeah.
So I think it's a really crucial discussion for you to have with yourself, with your professionals. And this is actually going to be my last question, which is how many of you have a team of professionals that help you? You're doing well. Do you have a team of professionals that's supporting you to keep more of what you have? Again, it's not about what you make, it's what you keep. Do you have a plan that helps you understand what the tax impact is when you start to withdraw in retirement, but also on death? Have you gone through that exercise? So do you have a retirement income withdrawal plan? Do you have an estate plan? Do you feel confident about your finances? If you do, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to know if you're using a professional, what your experience has been, if you're someone who needs support in this area. Because again, there's no shame in needing support with your finances. You just have to find the right person, the right fit. And that's actually one of the reasons why we call this community and a confidant community, and why I call myself a confidant, because it's about finding someone that you feel confident about working with you, working through your circumstances. And that has everything to do with fit. If your gut says you don't feel good, that's probably not the right person. And if you're not sure what their credentials are, always ask. So you understand, how are they licensed? How can they help you? Are they a certified financial planner? Are they an advisor? These are questions to ask as you're searching through finding the right fit for you. So if that might be us, if you think that we might be a good fit and you want to start a conversation about how you can keep more of the assets that you've worked so hard to build up, reach out to us, reach out to our team. Jody is on the live today, and I know she's going to be posting in the chat shortly the 30-minute free strategy session, so that if you want to get more details, you can reach out to us. So happy Growth Month. We so appreciate you tuning into our live today. You definitely need to stay tuned, because all this month we're going to be talking about growth and what it means to you and your finances. So definitely stay tuned. Follow us, like and share this live if it was something that was impactful to you. And thank you again, Jen, for tuning in, hanging out here with me today, and going through the live, helping to answer some of people's questions around, what does it mean to do well? And why is that deceptive? We really, really appreciate, I really, really appreciate your support.
My pleasure.
I'm always looking forward to what the new moves might be. So I'm going to see you again next month, and see you next week, live community, confidant community. Have a great evening. Take care, everybody.
Take care, community, confidant community.